Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Theoretical Foundations of Gender Studies in Discourse Analysis. The integration of feminist theory, queer theory, and masculinity studies into the domain of gender studies and discourse analysis has significantly deepened the examination of how gender identities and relations are constructed, negotiated, and contested through language and social interaction. The theoretical contributions of Judith Butler, Kosofsky Sedgwick, and R.W. Connell, in particular, have provided crucial frameworks for analyzing the performative nature of gender, the fluidity of sexuality, and the relational and hierarchical aspects of masculinities, respectively. These perspectives underscore the power of discourse in both reflecting and shaping societal norms and inequalities related to gender and sexuality. This introduction serves as a gateway to exploring the diverse ways in which language and discourse are central to the construction of gender identities and the dynamics of power and resistance within gender relations. 1. Feminist theory. The theoretical foundations of gender studies in discourse analysis are significantly enriched by feminist theory, particularly through the groundbreaking contributions of Judith Butler. Butler's work on performativity and the conceptualization of gender as a social construct has had a profound impact on both fields, offering critical insights into how gender identities are formed, expressed, and understood within society. Her theories provide a framework for analyzing the ways in which language and discourse not only reflect but also actively produce and maintain gender norms and identities. 1. Judith Butler and gender performativity. Gender performativity, central to Butler's theory, articulated in her seminal works such as Gender Trouble, 1990, and Bodies That Matter, 1993, is the idea that gender is not a fixed, innate quality or a mere cultural inscription on a pre-given sex. Instead, gender is performative, meaning it is produced and made real through repeated performances or acts that conform to societal norms and expectations. These performances are governed by discourse and are iterative, highlighting the ritualistic and normative dimensions of gender expression. The role of discourse. Butler's concept of performativity underscores the role of discourse in constructing gender identity. Discourses, understood as structured sets of meanings that circulate within society, set the parameters within which gender performances are intelligible. They delineate the boundaries of gender norms, categorizing and defining what is considered masculine or feminine. Through this lens, discourse analysis becomes a tool for uncovering how language and communication practices contribute to the ongoing production and reinforcement of gender norms. 2. Gender as a social construct. Challenging essentialist views. Butler's work challenges essentialist views of gender that link gender identity directly to biological sex, arguing instead that both gender and sex are constructed through social and discursive practices. This perspective shifts the focus from gender as an inherent attribute to gender as an effect of power relations enacted through discourse. Implications for discourse analysis. Within gender studies in discourse analysis, Butler's conceptualization of gender as a social construct provides a theoretical foundation for examining how texts, media, institutional policies, and everyday language use contribute to the construction of gendered subjects. Analyzing how discourses construct gender enables scholars to question and critique the naturalization of gender binaries and hierarchies. Judith Butler's contributions to feminist theory, especially her notions of performativity and the discursive construction of gender, offer essential theoretical foundations for gender studies and discourse analysis. By applying Butler's framework, researchers can explore the complex ways in which gender is performed, negotiated, and contested within various discursive contexts. This approach not only enhances our understanding of the fluid and constructed nature of gender but also opens up possibilities for challenging oppressive gender norms and envisioning more inclusive and equitable forms of gender expression. 2. Queer theory. Queer theory, an influential framework within the broader scope of gender studies and discourse analysis, significantly extends and complicates understandings of gender and sexuality. A pivotal figure in this field is Kosofsky Sedgwick, whose work has been instrumental in exploring how discourse constructs and complicates categories of sexuality. Sedgwick's contributions emphasize the fluidity of sexuality and challenge the binary logics that have traditionally dominated discussions of sexual identity, thus offering profound insights into the ways discourses around sexuality are formed, negotiated, and resisted. 1. Kosofsky Sedgwick and the Exploration of Discourse. Epistemology of the Closet. In her seminal book, Epistemology of the Closet, 1990, Sedgwick examines how Western societies have constructed homosexuality and heterosexuality as distinct, oppositional, and hierarchically arranged categories. She argues that this binary understanding of sexual identities is deeply embedded in various discourses and cultural practices, profoundly affecting individuals' experiences and self-perceptions. Binary oppositions in sexuality. Sedgwick critiques the binary oppositions that underpin much of the thinking about sexuality: homosexual, heterosexual, male, female, highlighting how these binaries fail to capture the complexities and variabilities of human desires and identities. Her work demonstrates that the binary model is not a neutral or natural classification but a product of specific historical and cultural discourses that serve to regulate and control expressions of sexuality. 2. Queer theory's contributions to discourse analysis. Questioning normative assumptions. Queer theory, informed by Sedgwick's insights, questions normative assumptions about sexuality and gender embedded in language and societal discourses. It challenges the ways in which certain identities and desires are normalized while others are pathologized or marginalized, thus revealing the power dynamics at play in the construction of sexual identities. Deconstructing sexuality in discourse. Applying queer theory to discourse analysis involves a critical examination of how texts, ranging from literary works to legal documents and media portrayals, construct, affirm, or challenge normative understandings of sexuality. It explores how discourses of sexuality are entangled with issues of gender, race, class, and other social categories, emphasizing the intersectional nature of identity. Highlighting fluidity and resistance. Queer theory underscores the fluidity of gender and sexual identities, rejecting fixed or essentialist categories. This perspective encourages the analysis of discursive practices that resist or subvert normative constraints, including the ways in which individuals use language creatively to express non-normative identities and desires. Kosofsky Sedgwick's contributions to queer theory have profoundly influenced gender studies and discourse analysis, offering critical tools for interrogating the discursive construction of sexuality. By examining the complexities, fluidities, and power relations embedded in discourses of sexuality, queer theory enriches our understanding of the social and linguistic mechanisms through which sexual norms and identities are produced and contested. This theoretical framework not only challenges existing paradigms but also fosters a more inclusive and nuanced exploration of gender and sexuality within discourse analysis. 3. Masculinity studies. Masculinity studies, a significant area within gender studies, critically examines how masculinities are constructed, performed, and negotiated in society. A foundational concept in this field is R.W. Connell's notion of hegemonic masculinity, which has deeply influenced both gender studies and discourse analysis by highlighting the relational and hierarchical nature of masculinities. Connell's work provides crucial insights into the dynamics of power and inequality that underlie the construction of masculine identities and offers a framework for analyzing how these dynamics are reproduced and challenged through discourse. 1. R. W. Connell and hegemonic masculinity. Hegemonic masculinity defined. Introduced by Connell. Hegemonic masculinity refers to a pattern of practice that allows men's dominance over women to continue and which also ensures a hierarchical arrangement among different masculinities. It is not merely about the personal characteristics or roles of individuals but about broader social relations and cultural ideals that valorize certain masculinities while subordinating others and all femininities. The relational nature of masculinities. Connell emphasizes that masculinities are constructed in relation to femininities and other masculinities. Hegemonic masculinity is thus understood in contrast to subordinated masculinities, those associated with non-heteronormative sexualities, for example, and marginalized masculinities, those constructed in relation to race, class, and other social axes. 2. Contributions to discourse analysis. Analyzing discursive constructions of masculinity. Connell's concept of hegemonic masculinity has been instrumental in guiding analyses of how masculinities are constructed through language and discourse. This includes examining media representations, institutional discourses, and everyday interactions to uncover the norms and values that constitute hegemonic and other forms of masculinity. Highlighting power and inequality. The notion of hegemonic masculinity provides a lens through which to explore the power relations underpinning discourses of gender. It allows researchers to investigate how discourses contribute to maintaining men's dominance and the hierarchical relations among men, as well as between men and women. Challenging and resisting hegemonic masculinity. Discourse analysis informed by masculinity studies and Connell's work also focuses on how hegemonic forms of masculinity can be contested and resisted. This involves identifying discursive practices that challenge traditional norms of masculinity, promote alternative masculinities, or subvert the gender order more broadly. R.W. Connell's concept of hegemonic masculinity is a cornerstone in the theoretical foundation of gender studies and discourse analysis, offering a comprehensive framework for understanding the complexities of masculinity in society. By applying this concept, scholars can delve into the nuanced ways in which masculinities are constructed, perpetuated, and challenged through discourse, shedding light on the intricate interplay of language, power, and gender. This approach not only contributes to a deeper understanding of gender dynamics but also opens up avenues for critiquing and transforming dominant notions of masculinity for more equitable gender relations. Conclusion. The theoretical landscapes provided by Judith Butler, Kosofsky Sedgwick, and R.W. Connell within the realms of feminist theory, queer theory, and masculinity studies have profoundly enriched our understanding of gender and sexuality in the context of discourse analysis. Butler's concept of gender performativity challenges traditional notions of gender as inherent and stable, highlighting instead the discursive practices that produce and sustain gender identities. Sedgwick's critique of binary logics in understanding sexuality invites a more nuanced exploration of the complexities of sexual identities and desires, emphasizing the role of discourse in constructing these categories. Meanwhile, Connell's notion of hegemonic masculinity illuminates the relational dynamics of gender, revealing how masculinities are shaped in relation to femininities and other masculinities within a framework of power and inequality. Together, these theoretical contributions underscore the centrality of discourse in constructing, maintaining, and contesting gender norms and identities. They provide a critical lens through which to examine the ways in which language and communication practices are imbued with power, serving to perpetuate societal norms and inequalities related to gender and sexuality. At the same time, they also highlight the potential for resistance and change, showcasing how discursive practices can be sites of contestation and transformation. By drawing on these rich theoretical foundations, scholars in gender studies and discourse analysis are equipped to navigate the complex interplay between language, power, and gender. This interdisciplinary approach not only advances academic discourse but also has significant implications for social change, advocacy, and policymaking. Through a critical examination of the discursive construction of gender and sexuality, this field contributes to the broader project of promoting gender equality and justice, underscoring the transformative potential of language as a site of resistance and redefinition. Frequently asked questions. What role does feminist theory play in discourse analysis within gender studies? Feminist theory, especially through the work of Judith Butler, emphasizes the performative nature of gender and the role of discourse in constructing gender identities. It provides a framework for analyzing how language and discourse produce and maintain gender norms and identities, thus enriching discourse analysis within gender studies. How does Judith Butler conceptualize gender, and what implications does this have for discourse analysis? Judith Butler argues that gender is performative, produced through repeated acts that conform to societal norms. This conceptualization implicates discourse as a key tool in constructing gender identity, enabling scholars to examine how language and communication practices reinforce or challenge gender norms. What is the significance of queer theory in understanding discourses of sexuality? Queer theory, particularly informed by the work of Kosofsky Sedgwick, challenges binary logics of sexuality and emphasizes its fluidity. It questions normative assumptions embedded in language and societal discourses, offering insights into the power dynamics involved in the construction of sexual identities. How does Kosofsky Sedgwick's work influence the analysis of discourse? Sedgwick's examination of binary oppositions in sexuality and the construction of homosexual and heterosexual identities highlights how discourse shapes perceptions and experiences of sexual identity. This perspective is crucial for analyzing how texts and cultural practices both reflect and shape understandings of sexuality. What is hegemonic masculinity, and who introduced this concept? Hegemonic masculinity, a concept introduced by R.W. Connell, refers to the dominant form of masculinity that perpetuates men's dominance over women and establishes a hierarchy among masculinities. It is a pattern of practice rather than a set of traits, emphasizing the relational and constructed nature of gender identities. In what ways does the concept of hegemonic masculinity contribute to discourse analysis? Hegemonic masculinity provides a lens to analyze how masculinities are constructed and maintained through discourse, highlighting the norms, values, and power relations that underpin these constructions. It allows for the examination of how media, institutions, and everyday language perpetuate dominant forms of masculinity and gender hierarchies. How do feminist theory, queer theory, and masculinity studies complement each other in gender studies and discourse analysis? These theoretical frameworks offer complementary perspectives on the construction of gender and sexuality, highlighting the performative, fluid, and relational aspects of identity. Together, they provide a comprehensive approach to analyzing how discourses shape, maintain, and challenge gender and sexual norms. What implications do the theories of Butler, Sedgwick, and Connell have for challenging oppressive gender norms? These theories underscore the role of discourse in maintaining gender and sexual norms, suggesting that challenging these norms involves critiquing and transforming the discourses that support them. They offer tools for identifying and contesting the linguistic and social practices that perpetuate gender inequality. How does the concept of performativity alter the traditional understanding of gender in society? Butler's concept of performativity challenges the view of gender as a fixed attribute, arguing instead that gender is constructed through repeated social performances. This shifts the focus to the ways in which gender identities are actively produced and contested within societal norms, emphasizing the potential for change. Why is the analysis of discourse important in understanding the construction of masculinities and femininities? Analyzing discourse is crucial because it reveals the mechanisms through which gender identities are constructed, maintained, and challenged. It allows scholars to uncover the subtle and explicit ways language and social practices perpetuate gender binaries, hierarchies, and norms, providing a basis for critiquing and transforming these constructs.